What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. Well, yesterday, with allegations flying all over the place online with Palworld and plagiarism, it appears the CEO has now responded, and we're going to go over some of those quotes here today. Also, we are going to be talking about Ubisoft, who's worked with Nintendo on Mario and Star Fox, and now it appears they may have their eyes set on a certain other popular franchise. And we'll also be going over some early concepts for the Switch OS that look way different than what we currently have. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure that like button helps out a ton. And if new here to the Spawn Wave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And we're going to start today with Persona 3 Reload. Now, this is out in about 2 weeks, and there's a lot of excitement around the remake for Persona 3, but there are some questions still around the platforms that it's on, specifically the missing Switch version. Well, Atomics did sit down in an interview with some of the developers over at Atlus asking just that. Hey, where is the Switch version? We can see this posted up, though. This over on Go Nintendo, where they say, according to the devs, the decision to not bring the game to Switch was made way back when the team was first planning out the game's existence. In other words, before production even started, a Switch version was never in the cards. That said, things can change. It's not as if the topic didn't come up at all during the whole development process, but Yamaguchi and Nitsuma said they'd have to chat with other Atlus staff to further explore the idea. My feeling on this is Persona 3 Reload will come to Nintendo's platform the next generation. They could still release it on the Switch, and we'll just say the Switch 2 for now at the same time, but I almost wonder if Atlus is realizing, hey, if we do release this on Nintendo's next system that we assume will be popular, and we're there in the quote-unquote launch window, well, we've seen the effect on other titles that are there at launch for new systems. Typically, it sells well because there are just less games to pick from. So I'm kind of wondering if that's Atlus's current strategy here with that, and maybe even metaphor. In fact, there is a rumor now going around from a prominent Persona or Atlus leaker who's saying that is the plan. So, hey, yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Maybe even for launch. Otherwise, I wouldn't be shocked if next year in 2025, Persona 3 Reload maybe pops up in Nintendo Direct. Also, it looks like Capcom is continuing to add their DRM Enigma to current games on Steam, ones you may already have in your library. Well, we can see this posted up over on X as a person noticed. Monster Hunter Rise update added Enigma. So I checked it out on my Steam Deck OLED, and it did indeed update. It was like a 4 GB update or something too. I don't know if I had backlog updates or something there, but it updated, and it didn't launch at first, but then a Proton hotfix went live, and now it launches. So there was a couple hours there where people are really frustrated because, yeah, the game they bought in their library was not working on their Steam Deck. Capcom's just doing some weird stuff. It is strange to me that they are playing around with even the stability of their current games, their current catalog, over mods. It's strange, but that's Capcom, and that's their big push right now, is this DRM on games you already purchased. So, good stuff, Capcom. Oh, and it looks like the day before Saga has finally come to an end. This was verified by IGN, which we can see here. They say the day before is now well and truly dead. 45 days after it came out. And I mean, it's such a weird situation because obviously they launched the game, and then like 4 days later, the studio shut down, and that was the end of it. It got delisted. And at this time, as IGN has verified, no servers appear upon search in any region. Now, some people are still trying to keep this game going by enabling like a single player offline version of it. It's strange. I don't know if it's just the build up, the anticipation, and people are like, well, we still want this game to be there for maybe preservation's sake. Some games are okay, I feel like, to leave behind. This might be one of them. So we'll hang out and wait and see if Fantastic just randomly pops up under a different name 2 or 3 years from now and tries to do it all over again. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with Palworld, which continues to roll along on Steam. In fact, at this time, and I say at this time because by the time you're seeing this, it may have increased another million, it's sold 5 million copies and has moved up to like the 3rd biggest release in terms of concurrent player count, right at 1.5 million people concurrently playing the game on Steam. That's not counting anyone on Xbox, because remember, this went into Game Pass who are also playing, so I mean, this thing could be 2.5 million easy then. Well, of course, we know it's been a hot topic online when it comes to comparing the different creatures in Palworld or Pals versus Pokemon design. So much so that people are breaking it down to like the wireframe skeletal structures and putting them up against each other and overlaying them. And so it's pretty close. I will admit, some of those is like, oh, okay. Others, again, a bit of a stretch at times. But really, it comes down to the idea that the studio is indeed going around and, well, plagiarizing creatures that are already made through designs with Pokemon. I think the AI narrative, the generative AI stuff is kind of on the back burner now, and people are sort of pushing that aside because there's just no clear evidence around that. But we do have the CEO now responding to VGC, as we mentioned before. They had reached out for comment, and we can head over here to their site. This is, again, from the CEO of developer Pocket Pair, Takuro Mizobi, says, "We are currently receiving abusive and defamatory comments against our artists, in addition to tweets that appear to be death threats. While we have received various opinions about Palworld, it is important to note that the supervision of all materials related to Palworld is conducted by a team, including myself. I bear the responsibility for the produced materials. I would appreciate it if these comments towards artists involved in Palworld would cease." Now, it's obvious, I'm sure, to many of you out there, in fact, I'd say probably, let's be real, like 98% of people are not sending these kind of threats, but for the 2% of people out there who are, I mean, come on, it's, I feel like the Pokemon Company and Nintendo can stand up for themselves if they feel the need to here, so yeah, don't send threats to the artists who are making these pals, but in this case, you can see some of the other comparisons here. One that was going around was from Bio, who did just that. They took the different renderings of the creatures from Pokemon and Pals and put them together. And again, some of them are pretty close. Yes, and VGC also reached out and got some other artist takes on this, saying that it's almost impossible to get the exact same proportions, and I do wonder if Nintendo or the Pokemon Company are going to look into this further. My only thing with this, and it's been pointed out by many people now, is this isn't like a new thing necessarily. I mean, Palworld being revealed, that is. It was shown in a trailer in 2021, June 2021. So it's just been sitting out there for 2.5 years now, ahead of just early access launch, and some of the creatures were already there. So you feel like Nintendo, Pokemon Company, creatures would have looked at that and said, oh, those look like our designs, let's investigate further. I feel like the fact that they are not going after this, again, ahead of this launch, tells me that even they're unsure if they would necessarily have a case that's worth pursuing. And at this time, while you would chase the money, as they say, with something like this, how well it's selling, well, Pocket Pair is not exactly hurting for money to legally defend themselves either, which is something Nintendo likes to do, as we've seen, bully people in the courtroom, and I think it'd be hard in this case to bully Pocket Pair with the amount of money that they're making currently. Although I do want to mention, as VGC points out, the CEO at Pocket Pair didn't exactly address any of the allegations around how similar these pals are to different Pokemon designs, so I think that quote, or the couple of quotes that were put out there, were carefully worded and meant to really just avoid any of the obvious conversation pieces that are going on. I think really, at this time, Nintendo will probably just continue to push forward towards their own Pokemon game with the Pokemon Company, maybe to launch their next system later on this year. I mean, Pokemon Day is right around the corner, so we'll find out soon if there's anything substantial coming up this year in February. But as for Palworld, it continues to roll along, continues to sell really, really well, and is like the center of attention right now when it comes to conversation online. Next up, let's talk about the Switch OS and that dashboard that you see every time you turn your system on, which is a very basic, minimalistic design, sure, and it's still mostly looks the same to how it did day one, although I guess we have some extra icons there, like the Nintendo Switch Online red circle, right? Well, there was a very different design that was at least thought of ahead of the Switch's release. In fact, some of these files are dated 2015, so just a couple of years before, and it was discovered recently and posted up on X, which we can see this was cataloged very nicely with Nintendo Everything, where it's from Paul Felix Kelly, and the big one that people are pointing to is sort of the menu mock-up. that I guess was just floated within Nintendo, as of course they're trying to come up with ideas for how the system is going to look when you first turn it on. And I really want to get people's take on this. If you would prefer something like this, where it's almost 2/3 of the screen at the top appears to just kind of be a banner showing off what icon you're hovering over. At least that's my assumption based on this image here, where we have Mario Kart, and I guess you go to the eShop and it'll have maybe some of the games that are listed in the eShop, or Splatoon, and show like a nice key art there. I will say it shows to me a bit more personality for the OS. My only thing is I don't really like the squared off boxes. Really, again, those could be kind of like placeholder shapes. They would have played around with this a bit more, as I assume this is kind of an early concept for it. But it also made me think about going into Nintendo's next system. How different do we think the dashboard is going to look? Because Nintendo apparently wanted to go with the current one because it's fast. Like, it doesn't matter to them necessarily how flashy it is, or the idea of themes or customization, even folders really on the main screen. It's just, can you turn it on quickly and get into a game immediately? So, I mean, if they want to stick with that mentality, I don't think they're going to add a lot of bells and whistles, even though the next system we figure is going to be much more capable than the current one, so maybe it can handle a bit more and still be very, very fast. I kind of feel like Nintendo still wants to stick to that because it's worked well, and I will admit, turning on the Switch and getting into a game in seconds, that is pretty nice, right? Waking up out of sleep and then it's just on and ready to go is great. But also I kind of think about some of the personality from previous Nintendo systems, and I wouldn't mind some of that coming back for the next system from Nintendo, but I guess we don't have to wait too much longer. Just let me know what direction you would want to go with that. Would you like to see the more minimalistic take and it just be ultra fast, or maybe a second or two slower and you have more control over what the dashboard looks like and just a little bit of that Nintendo personality injected in? Next up, let's talk about WWE 2K24, as we had a bunch of different cover art revealed, the release date, and some new features. So 2K24, we can see the standard edition here. It is indeed Cody Rhodes on the cover. This is coming out March 8th. We also have the deluxe edition. This has WWE Women's World Champion Rhea Ripley, and then we have the former WWE Women's Champion Bianca Belair on the cover. And then moving up to the 40 years of WrestleMania edition, big collage of all different eras from WWE and wrestling across the front here. I mean, that looks pretty cool. That is a cover where I go, okay, that's impressive stuff, mostly because if you've ever been into wrestling, there's probably someone on this cover that you can go, okay, yeah, those were the good days. For example, if you want to go back to the Stone Cold Rock era, all the way back to the Hogan, Andre the Giant, or even the more recent stuff, you can see Triple H, HBK, John Cena, Roman Reigns. So that's a pretty cool cover. It, of course, is going to come with a larger price tag. Go figure, that coming in at $120. It's going to have the extra DLs. I mean, it's 2K. Like of course, it's going to have all kinds of stuff thrown in there, DLC, etc. Now, they do have new match types. Special guest referee matches are back. They also go over ambulance match, casket match, and the return of the gauntlet match. The thing that I'm pretty interested in is the 2K showcase of the Immortals. They say instead of focusing on a single wrestler, though, 2K is using the 40-year history of WrestleMania as the backdrop. The mode will feature 21 different matches from throughout WrestleMania, with many of the biggest moments highlighted, seemingly including the legendary Hulk Hogan versus Andre the Giant match at WrestleMania 3, which you can see in an in-game screenshot of below. So there we go, nice screenshot there, and there is a full trailer you can check out. And I mean, look, I do wonder if this is a franchise that would be better off going once every 3 years. I know 2K likes to try to do the yearly thing with just their sports games in general, and wrestling already went away for an extra year, and I think like a year and a half almost, to try to reset and get things figured out. But still, like back in the day with the PS2, the GameCube, the Xbox kind of, but like mostly PS2 and GameCube then, we would get a game every couple of years. It wouldn't necessarily be every single year, every 12 months. Now, eventually, they did go to that 2008, 2009, 2010, like eventually they got there, but prior to that, I just think the extra time really helped. However, I will admit some of the stuff they're outlining here sounds pretty cool. So if you're a wrestling fan, I'm sure you're very, very excited for this, and again, it's coming out March 8th, so not too much longer. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about Ubisoft Montpellier and apparently Zelda. Okay, this has an interesting setup. So they did a Reddit Ask Me Anything, and it was about, of course, Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown, as they just released that, which is an awesome game. And if you have not played it, you should. There's a demo out there at least to try, but I do believe that game is worth a pickup. I'm still going through it. I'm at like 90 some odd percent, so I'm trying to find the last little bits on the map to just 100% this thing, but it's an awesome Metroidvania to experience. However, during this AMA on Reddit, they were asked, well, what other franchises would you like to work on, maybe from Nintendo? Well, this is what they had to say. This, according to The Gamer, saying, in response, Raime Butin, senior game designer on The Lost Crown, revealed that they would love to work with the Zelda IP and potentially make a strange spin-off based on Adventure of Link. Ooh, okay, that would be an interesting thing to see happen here from Ubisoft Montpellier. They clearly know what they're doing with the 2D setup for games, right? Like they got that down pat, but also they can work within kind of the 3D space. And if you look at Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown, originally they were conceptualizing that as a 3D game and then moved it into 2D. And they do take advantage of like the 3D character models and different things in cutscenes, as well as different set pieces, we'll say, in the game while you're playing. Well, in this case, Adventure of Link did have kind of those overworld parts that might fit into 3D, but when you went into dungeons or areas where you're actually playing, whether it's in the forest stuff, it's all 2D. That would be really, really cool to see their take on it. And we know Nintendo has at least been open to working with Ubisoft at times. So we've seen them do Star Fox as part of Starlink. And by the way, I think that would still be something that would be really cool to see Ubisoft come back and work with Nintendo to do, that being a whole new Star Fox game, but that's a topic for another day, I'm sure. But we've seen them just hand off Mario to Ubisoft. That's a big deal. I feel like Zelda having a game like that, maybe even to coincide with the live action movie, would be great. I think that's a good strategy to set that up so we have just a cadence of Zelda releases as either we're working up to the movie or while it's out in theaters around that time. So sure, let him take a shot at something like Zelda 2: The Adventure of Link. That is a game that I've wanted to see Nintendo try something with in the modern era. It's just, okay, figuring out who would do it. Apparently the move is to have Ubisoft Montpellier do it, because I just watched what they did with Prince of Persia, and I think they can figure it out. And before we go to the comment of the day, we're taking a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday. We're asked, with the Nintendo Switch 2, are you expecting a complete revamp of the current Switch OS? Okay, 61% say no, it will still be a simple design or just mostly the same. 39% say yes, it will look completely different and more complex. To me, okay. So, I would like to see the eShop get completely revamped. It's basically a web browser that opens. I wouldn't mind seeing that be more integrated into the OS level, so it's not a web browser and it's something that's curated better or just better to browse. I mean, the thing is slow. Like, it should be one of the most important things for Nintendo, since it is a portal to buy stuff through, but it's just feels like an afterthought. And for a while that was with Sony and their PS3, and then they moved to PS4 and PS5, and it's just a much better experience. So if anything, if the OS stays the same, hopefully the eShop gets better, but who knows, it's Nintendo. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from Burn, who says, I think Temtem's biggest mistake is not seeing the monsters in the world and it being random encounters. I think Temtem's biggest mistake is they were trying too hard to be a carbon copy of Pokemon, almost to the letter, to where when a new Pokemon game comes out, yeah, people are just going to go play Pokemon. But sure, the idea of the creatures not running around in the world, that does feel sort of archaic now compared to what we see even just Pokemon doing. But the thing with Palworld is, while it is drawing one-to-one comparisons to Pokemon for the creature design, the game itself doesn't play like Pokemon. Outside of throwing spheres at creatures to catch them, it's a mishmash of all different kinds of games, but it's closer to something like Ark than Pokemon. In fact, the CEO that we just talked about the quotes from earlier in the show, also mentioned it's not really a Pokemon game, it's closer to a survival game like Ark, and as I've played it, yeah, I can confirm that. It does feel more and more like that Ark Survival Evolved experience, as opposed to running around, conquering different gyms, and trying to become a Pokemon master. And I think that's the biggest thing Palworld has been able to succeed with, is mishmashing all these things together. kind of made something new, as weird as that sounds, and people are clearly finding the fun in this game as we are seeing these concurrent player counts completely blow past expectations. And ladies and gentlemen, that's gonna do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. Whether it's the comments from the CEO at Pocket Pair for Palworld, how do you feel about all the stuff going on right now online as the conversation just continues to basically spiral out of control on social media, go figure. And then also, what about that early concept for the dashboard on the Switch? Would you have preferred that one with a bit more personality, or the more minimalistic, faster version, I'm sure? Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.